All right, listen up. If you haven't seen this interview with Katt Williams and Club Shay Shay, aka Unc, aka Shannon Sharpe, aka literally has the most viral interview of all time, you have missed out, okay? And usually I don't watch these types of interviews. And listen up, it was literally a masterclass in life and business. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the 7 business principles that I got from the interview that you probably missed out on. So number 1, Katt Williams mentioned in the interview that competition is the driving force. And what does he mean by that? Okay, so as he was talking about this, he mentioned several companies and he kind of gave examples of how competition is literally the driving force. Okay, he talked about it in the comedy realm, which a lot of people were surprised about because so many people are used to comedians being all friendly with one another, not understanding that just like sports, it is very competitive and a lot of people are fighting for different roles, maybe similar roles, and he talks a lot about that in this interview. But what's really key here as it relates to business is that competition, again, is the driving force in business. And a lot of people, especially if you're just starting off in business, you may not like the idea of competition, especially if you're not really a competitive type person. But one of the great things about competition is that we get to benefit from all the technology and all the innovations that come with the competition. Okay, so if you want to think about Apple versus Microsoft, they've been competing back and forth for literally decades now, okay? And because of this competition, they're always looking to outdo one another. We end up getting amazing products such as the iPhone. We end up getting amazing products such as all the different technologies that come with this competition, okay? And it goes the same thing with many other competitions, right? That's why there's rules as it relates to monopolies, and that's why the government does not allow people to monopolize or companies to monopolize, because it's going to literally destroy competition. There's not going to be any reason to be able to change your prices or really to be innovative, okay? So if you're the only person competing in your market, then that's going to destroy competition. So he talks about competition, but what's even more interesting, and in the interview he talks about how Disney, yes, Disney, the multi-billion-dollar company, literally sent Katt Williams a cease and desist where he was only making $25,000 a year because he used the name Cat in the Hat. And a lot of people may be surprised by that because they're like, okay, why would Disney try to go after this little name comic or this little person? But at the end of the day, Disney owns the rights to Cat in the Hat and they want to make sure that they are able to maintain their intellectual property. And one of the lessons that you can learn from this is that you yourself can also do this. And you don't have to be some big brand or big multi-billion-dollar organization to be able to do this. You can actually go ahead and work with an attorney to be able to send cease and desist letters on your behalf, okay? And it doesn't always have to be about branding. It could literally be anything that you believe that you can take legal action and be able to escalate in the court if they do not listen to your request. And just as a side note, cease and desist does not mean necessarily that you're required to go to court or anything like that. It's literally just the first step in the event that someone wants to sue someone else, and kind of giving you the heads up like, listen, I see what you're doing, I want you to go ahead and stop that, or we're about to take this thing to another level, okay? And that's exactly what Katt Williams faced. But the great opportunity for him is now, instead of now being known as Cat in the Hat, he was able to go ahead and change his name to Katt Williams, and that's what we know him as today. Also, going back to competition, Katt Williams talks about how Cedric the Entertainer stole one of his jokes, okay? And there's a whole bunch of videos out there on YouTube, you can go ahead and check it out. But, you know, the jokes kind of do look similar, and that kind of goes back to this idea of competition, okay? And when it comes to competition, yes, there are going to be times where people may try to steal your content, steal your material, but the thing about it is you have to just continue to innovate and continue to keep it pushing, okay? So, again, with the Katt Williams situation, he obviously has evolved and has been able to do amazing things outside of that role, and the opportunity in Comic View at that time was a huge deal to him because that was kind of like his first big break. But he went on to win Emmys. He's done a whole bunch of amazing things out there. So that's really the key here as it relates to competition, is just understanding that when you're the best at what you do, when you are a leader, that other people are going to steal and try to take your material, but you have to just continue innovating and continue evolving as a business professional. And in the interview, Katt Williams also talks about how Pepsi and Coke have beef. He's like, you won't believe the conversations that Pepsi has about Coke. And it's really interesting, it's really funny to think about that, because when we think about these companies, we're just thinking that it's just a drink, but you got to realize that these companies are literally in competition with one another, right? They're trying to win big deals, they're trying to get big brands, they're trying to get big sponsorships, and they're literally competing with one another. And that's how it goes in business, okay? So it's not necessarily something for you to be shy of or run away from, but just understand it is what it is. And at the end of the day, if you're really passionate about what you do, it's really normal for you to want to be the best at what you do and want to be known as the best in your industry or your arena that you're in. All right, lesson number 2. In the interview, Katt Williams says, "I'm one of the richest men in the world. Please do not look at my net worth." I looked at my net worth and actually had it on me. Okay, and Katt Williams delivered it obviously a whole lot better, but this is a really powerful lesson. And what I love about this is he shares so many different gems in not just one sentence alone. Okay, so I'm going to break this down. So one thing is, he did talk about this concept of net worth, and in my opinion, I believe that net worth is probably one of the most overrated and most misunderstood concepts as it relates to wealth building. And Robert Kiyosaki actually really breaks this down really well in his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And in the book, he actually says that he cringes every time that someone says, "I have $100,000 net worth, I have $1 million net worth." And the reason why that is because a lot of people have their net worth possibly in the stock market, or they could have it in their home, or whatever the case is. And when they actually go ahead and sell that thing that they've built up and accumulated all this net worth, all this equity, for instance, they basically get taxed on it. So whatever number that they thought they were worth is actually less than that, because once you go ahead and sell the asset or sell the thing for, let's say, $100,000, let's say you have to pay 50% of that in taxes, your net worth is now no longer $100,000, your net worth is $50,000. So it's a really interesting concept, and it's funny how so many people are so obsessed with this concept of net worth. I'm not saying that it's absolutely obsolete or it does not matter, but just understanding that it is not the only metric and not the most important metric as it relates to being able to understand someone's wealth. And it's also interesting in the interview how Katt Williams talks about how he has his net worth on him. In the interview, he was talking about his jewelry, and if you actually looked up his net worth, it's $2 million. In the interview, he talks about several times how he gets 8-figure deals for doing specials, so he probably has a net worth significantly higher than that. And with the jewelry, depending on the type of jewelry that you have, believe it or not, it can actually appreciate in value. So if you have a high-end watch that's just like a Rolex, for instance, those typically can appreciate in value, and that's actually a really powerful thing, a really powerful lesson I got from that, and I love that he shared that. And in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki defines wealth as how many days you're able to survive without your money running out. And going back to what Katt Williams was mentioning about worth, he said that he is one of the richest men that ever lived. And one of the things that you notice in the interviews that Katt Williams was always giving back. He was really doing a lot of nice things and amazing things for people behind the scenes. He was buying people Hollywood stars. He was going to Haiti and helping out the kids in Haiti. He was doing all these amazing things behind the scenes. He would go to shows and give comics who weren't getting paid their fair share. He would actually go ahead and give them some money, right? And he didn't make a big announcement about it. He was really low key about it, and a lot of people did not know about this. I was actually surprised when I heard this, and I thought that was so powerful. So I believe that's one of the reasons why he said he's one of the richest men that ever lived. Also, I believe he's talking about his self-worth. So in the interview, he talks about how all these comedians and different people wear dresses, and how there's a conspiracy theory about black men wearing dresses in Hollywood. I don't know if it's truly a conspiracy theory, but I have noticed that there are a lot of black comedians that have wore dresses, and they happen to be usually the most popular celebrities as it relates to being popular in the arena of comedy. And if you watch the interview, you can tell that Katt Williams is like really passionate about this concept. Like, it's like a straight up hard no for him. And in my opinion, I don't believe that if you wear dresses, you're a bad person, or you're going to hell, or you're part of the Illuminati, or a lot of things that he was saying in that video. But what I did respect was that Katt Williams really stuck to his guns, and he said, like, hey, no amount of money, no whatever opportunity is worth me having to compromise my values, my morals, to be able to make a little bit of money, right? To be able to have this worldly success where people know me, or I'm making this amount of money. And I thought that was really dope. And for me, I think about my brand and my business, and I know that as a black man, if I went ahead and put on a wig or started dressing up as a woman, I know that I could probably have millions of subscribers and millions of people following me on TikTok and get brand deals and all this kind of stuff, because there is it's like a proven formula for black men. If they dress up like women, that they're gonna get all this accolade and all this attention. But at the end of the day, like, for me, again, no judgment on anyone that does that, but for me, I don't want to be remembered as the guy who wears the dresses, right? I don't want to be known as the accountant that dresses up like a woman. And again, it's no disrespect to anyone, but like, it's just understanding that, you know, if you have a set of boundaries and principles, you don't compromise those in order to make some money here right now or have this worldly success, okay? So that, I thought that was really dope. And one of the things that Katt Williams says in the interview is that he wanted to be God's best friend. And in the Bible, it talks about how when you give, you're not necessarily supposed to make a big announcement about it or let everyone know. It's one of those things where you kind of do it, you know, low key, and that's exactly what he does. And because of that, you're going to be rewarded. Like, God sees you, so there's no reason to make this big announcement and let everyone know that I'm, you know, going out and doing this and that for the community and giving this person money and that person money. Like, he's not about that, right? And a lot of times when we actually heard about these opportunities and we actually heard about when these things happen, it usually came from other people. And then Katt Williams, you know, was actually really humble about it too when he was asked by Shannon Sharpe about this. So I thought that was really dope. All right, money lesson number 3 that you probably missed from the interview. Katt Williams talks about this concept of teachers being underpaid. And he says in the interview, this is a country where teachers are the most underpaid, but we also say that kids are the most important thing. And there's always been this history of teachers always being underpaid in this country. There's actually a recent article that came out from Time Magazine talking about how a teacher had to go ahead and get 3 part-time jobs, also donate blood and plasma to be able to pay her bills, okay? And on average, the average teacher just starting off makes about $36,000 in the United States. When it comes from taxes, like if we look at like the funding that comes from taxes, literally less than 1% goes to education, goes to funding. And when it comes to overall as a country of what we're investing into education, public education, okay, we're about 12% versus internationally, they're investing a little bit over 15%, okay? So we're already behind other countries as it relates to being able to invest in education. There's a lot of conspiracy theories and reasons why that probably is, but it was just something that I thought was really dope, and it was just really important. It really brought back to the forefront how there's like this disconnect and like kind of like this hypocrisy in the world about, you know, we say that this is the most important thing, but we're only investing this much into it, right? And it goes back to this concept of your heart is where your treasure lies, meaning that basically whatever you invest in, whatever you spend time in, whatever you provide money to or assets to, that's what is really most important to you, right? And you can see if you actually look at the funding and a lot of the money that we're spending is not necessarily going to things that we quote unquote think is important. So I thought that was a really powerful money lesson in that interview. Also, what's really interesting is that the federal education budget, based on the tax income that is generated, about 0.38% actually comes from taxpayers' income, okay? So that's how much is actually allocated from the money that you're paying in taxes. That's how much is actually allocated to education, right? Which is not a significant percent. Money lesson number 4 that you probably missed during the interview, Katt Williams also says that being afraid in no way stops you from doing what you gotta do. So in life, we allow fear to stop us from doing the things that we want to do. So let's say, for instance, that you know that you want to go ahead and build your social media, but you are still allowing fear to prevent you from being able to go live or create content or record videos. Like, that is what's really stopping so many people, and that's why so many people are having struggles with their business, because they keep having this fear, and that fear basically manifests into procrastination. And procrastination is not really a problem. A lot of people think that procrastination is a problem, but it actually stems from your fear. It stems from you thinking about things that you don't want to happen, because you think that by you doing the thing that something worse is going to happen, then it's going to stop you and it's going to slow you down from actually taking the action that's going to be required. So in the interview, Katt Williams talks about how he was able to literally like leave his house, leave his home when he was 13 years old, from Ohio all the way to Miami, to be able to go ahead and start a new life. He was basically homeless. He was living with homeless people. He learned lessons from homeless people. And I thought that was really interesting, but he also did not allow that fear to stop him from doing what he needs to do. And because of that, he became the man that he is today, to be able to have all these accolades and have all this life experience. And you could also tell that he's very knowledgeable. Like, actually, like, he is extremely well spoken. If you watch that interview, and he's very well read. I think he said he read like 3,000 books during his lifetime. Like, it was insane, okay? So going back to this concept of fear, so there's a really popular quote that says that fear stands for false expectations appearing real. And I think that is so true. A lot of times we have these false expectations, we have these false beliefs, thinking that, you know, what's going to happen is going to be this big, terrible, miserable thing that's going to happen to us, but in reality that never actually happens. Like, there's actually a study by Penn State, and they basically studied a whole bunch of people, and they asked them to write down literally every single fear that they had for a month. And what they found was that 91% of the things that people feared never actually happened. Like, it never ever happened. So it's crazy what we spend all this energy and all this thoughts and all this time, things that are going to happen to us, but in reality those things never end up happening to us, and things end up actually being better than what we predicted. Okay, so do not allow fear to stop you from being able to take the action that you need to take in your life and your business. Alright, money lesson number 5, Katt Williams talks about the audience's opinions is the only opinion that matters. And I thought this was such a powerful lesson. If you're someone who is passionate, if you love what you do, like the things that you create, you probably think it's like the best thing in the world, okay? But the thing that you need to realize is this: the marketplace actually decides what is good and what is not. A lot of times, especially on social media, everyone talks about the algorithm. This algorithm's not working for me. This algorithm's not working for me. But in reality, the algorithm is driven and actually geared towards the audience. So if you are pleasing the audience, if the audience is happy with what you're posting, what you're creating, then the algorithm is actually going to benefit you, and it's actually going to give you more opportunities. But a lot of times we like to blame outside things, or we like to make all these excuses. Not to say that the algorithm doesn't have any type of impact, but at the end of the day, it's focused on keeping people on that platform. And if you're someone who is not keeping people on the platform, if you're someone who is basically causing the disruption on the platform and you're disrupting the audience is ultimately at the end of the day going to be the judge of who's successful, who's not successful. Doesn't matter how good you think you are, doesn't matter what your mama thinks, doesn't matter what your husband, your wife thinks. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the marketplace. Money lesson number 6 that you probably missed: Katt Williams says that the truth don't need motivation. Okay, so Katt Williams actually said this as he was kind of starting off in the interview, and you know, he was taking drinks, and Shannon Sharpe thought that he was taking drinks and trying to drink to be able to build up like this liquid courage to be able to say the things that he needed to say. And during the interview, Katt Williams had his truth and he had his story, and he had it and he spoke it with so much conviction and clarity that you could tell like he did not need motivation to be able to tell the truth. And that's what's really powerful about being honest with yourself and then also with other people, because now like what ends up happening is that if you're someone who's out there lying, if you're someone who's out there who does not have integrity, like you're going to have all this information stored up in your head, versus if you operate in truth, if you operate with a sense of being honest with yourself and other people, you don't have to necessarily hide behind the shadows, and you don't necessarily need anything to be able to motivate you or inspire, give you the courage to be able to do it, because you could be your true authentic self. And I think that's what's really powerful. You could tell in this interview that Katt Williams was like absolutely authentic, and that's what's so powerful about what Katt Williams said, talking about the truth does not need motivation, because just because he's his true authentic self, he does not need to hide, and he can just keep it real. Money lesson number 7 that Katt Williams mentions in the interview: winners are not allowed to let losers rewrite history. And this was so powerful, and to me, I was reminded of branding. Okay, as it relates to branding, like a lot of times, so many of us are scared to share our story and put our brand out there. And here's a really powerful lesson that I learned about branding and sharing your story. And it goes like this: if you do not share your story with the marketplace will make up a story about you. I'm gonna say that again. If you do not share your story with the marketplace will share a story about you. And that's exactly what happened to Katt Williams. Katt Williams was pretty low key, okay? He's not necessarily on social media all the time. Again, he's not doing all these big movies. He's not doing all these interviews. He's not everywhere all the time like a lot of these big comedians, a lot of these big stars are. So because of that, the world and basically the marketplace, quote unquote, started creating stories about him, right? They had this story about that he was on drugs, and he was doing hard drugs, and he was doing this, and he was difficult to work with, and all these different negative things, because he was not in the public eye as much as these other people, okay? So he allowed all these other people to be able to jump on Shannon Sharpe's podcast. And because he wasn't out there sharing his story, what ended up happening is that all these different people started getting these interviews and started mentioning his name and started saying this about him and that about him. It ended up creating this false narrative of what was actually going on. And I believe that's one of the reasons why this interview was so explosive, is because it has been so silent and allowing all these people to spread lies about him, all these people to make up stories about him. And it was finally his opportunity to be able to share his story. And I thought that was so powerful. And I think that's a really powerful lesson as it relates to your brand and your business. As a business owner, you want to make sure that you're proactive and making sure that you're controlling your brand, your narrative, and sharing your truth, right? I'm not telling you to make up a hypothetical fake story. I'm not telling you to fake it till you make it. I'm literally telling you that if you are the best at what you do, if you are great at what you do, if you have done X, Y, and Z, you want to make sure you brag on yourself a little bit. You want to let people know what you're able to do, what you've accomplished, and that is going to be able to control the narrative versus allowing other people to control the narrative. If you're not necessarily on social media as much, or if you're not as active, people are going to take that as a sign that you fell off. Even if you didn't fall off, even if you're doing amazing things on and off the internet, people are going to see that, okay? And that's one of the unfortunate things with the social media world, is because people start creating narratives without actually knowing the full story. So those were the 7 money making lessons that you probably missed from the Katt Williams interview with Club Shay Shay. Shout out to Club Shay Shay, shout out to Katt Williams, shout out to the internet for allowing this thing to go viral. I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. Let me know in the comments what you learned from this interview, and if you enjoyed this, I guarantee you're going to love this next video where I break down even more money making tips. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you later. Peace.